both my fellow panelists mentioned Article 153. Yeah? This is like a very important aspect of it, because if you're talking about institutionalized racism, and by the way, I will be brief, I won't be long. Our institutions are all based on the Constitution. So what's in the Constitution becomes of vital importance, because it colors what our institutions are. Yeah? So we have to deal with the Constitution. And I'm glad that it's been raised, because it is absolutely vital and important. And see, what people forget about Article 153 is that it has to be read in line with Article 8. And Article 8 says that we are all equal. It's quite clear. We are all equal. Right? Article 8 also says there will be times when we are not all equal, but any act of inequality has to be specifically allowed for in the Constitution. It cannot be anything that you want. So, you know, 10% discount for Kari Jalaluddin's house cannot, because it's not in the Constitution. It's not allowed in the Constitution. So it's actually salah, wrong. Right? So, you know, there are other things which are unequal in the Constitution. Some of it is like, nobody's going to kick up much of a fuss. For example, it says that in certain institutions, your religion will matter. So, if you want to be a Sharia judge, you'll have to be a Muslim. Who on earth would want to be a Sharia judge? I don't know that, but if you want to be a Sharia judge, you have to be Muslim, right? You know, and no one's going to get too much of a fuss about those kinds of things. Right? What we're talking about here is, you know, our education, our lives, you know, our day-to-day lives, right? And the Constitution is clear. You can only do things which are unequal if the Constitution allows for it. So what does 153 allow for? It's quite limited. You just have to read the Constitution. I won't bore you with it, but basically it's quotas in education and scholarship, for 2 licenses for trade, and government service, quotas in government service. So it's actually, it's very narrow, the kinds of things you can do which are unequal. And on top of that, I mean, Soong mentioned this, yeah? There's the element of reasonableness. Okay? So that means any action which is done, which is so-called affirmative action under 153, has got to be reasonable. Now, if you say something is reasonable or not, that means it can be questioned. Alright? So if you do something which is unreasonable, then it's unconstitutional. But then how do you know whether it's unreasonable or not? It has to be questioned. It has to be challenged. And it has to be decided in court. That's the proper way. Okay? But how these ayams interpret 153 is, you cannot question anything about 153. Okay, even if we take that statement as correct, then okay, fine, alright, okay. Sedition Act, alright. Race Relations Act, whatever you want to call it. Alright? Even if we can't question 153, surely we can question the implementation of 153, because the 153 has to be implemented properly. It's to be constitutional. But that's not how these people think, because they don't think.
Cannot think.
Oh, by the way, Agong, he doesn't actually have any real power in this system. All this stuff that, you know, when it says Agong does this, Agong does that, it's under advice. The Agong only has 2 real powers. One is to appoint a Prime Minister, and the other one is to dissolve Parliament, or not to dissolve Parliament if he chooses not to. That's the only 2 powers he has. So everything else is not the Agong. I personally think we should just leave the Agong alone, and the Agong should leave us alone. Alright, okay, so that's that. And there are other things in the Constitution. For example, there's Article 136, which says that no one in the federal service can be discriminated against. So all these things for the civil service, and the reason why non-Malays don't join the civil service is because you're not going to get promoted. Alright, I mean, or, you know, university vice chancellors, you know, and it's not just non-Malays, there's people like me also who will never be vice chancellor. Right? Okay? But actually, the Constitution says you cannot be discriminated against in the service. But no one talks about that. No one talks about that, you know. Ibrahim Ali, in all his rotundness, says he's a defender of the Constitution. Yeah, defend 136, why don't you? Right? Of course you won't. So these are certain things. So basically, for me, the problem, yes, the Constitution allows for certain things, and the trouble is it's been totally and utterly abused. And why is that? Because I think we've lost any sense of aspiration. This country has lost any sense of philosophy. This country has lost any sense of idealism. We've become so pragmatic. So what they've been doing is they've been taking these provisions and they're not making decisions based on any sort of overarching ideal of equality. They're making decisions based purely on greed and pragmatism. And let's be frank, we are all equally guilty, because how the hell else is Barisan Nasional in power all this time? Because we've been pragmatic. All of us have been pragmatic. Takut, we're scared. We're all equally to blame. I'm sorry, the whole bloody country. I've never voted for them, incidentally, but so, if we're talking about institutionalized racism, yes, you know, everything else, you know, all the issues have been talked about. Schools, I just want to make a special mention here about schools. It's not just about the facilities and the lack of facilities for certain types of schools. If we look at the syllabus as well now, Ghee and I have been working on this. The history syllabus, for example, the tone of the history syllabus is racist. It's totally racist. It talks about kaum pendatang, you know, it's perpetually pushing this idea, right, that some people belong here and some people actually are lucky to be allowed to be here. It pushes that. And this is what's being taught to our children, right? And on top of that, all the Malaysian textbooks now have one Malaysia on it. Menyakitkan hati itu. Government propaganda in schools, there you go. And then, but you know, okay, no, at the end of it all, ultimately, it boils down to a certain extent to, it's just our attitude also. I mean, look at our politics. Huh? Just, okay, forget about the fact that the political parties are racially based. Okay? We talk about in elections, huh? Oh, this is a Malay area. This is a Chinese area. This area has a large number of Indians. You're making political decisions based, election decisions based on race. Not what issues anymore, I know. It's race. So who do we put up here? Someone who will be acceptable to the people in that area. I know. That's how low we have sunk. And you know, I mean, Teck mentioned about, you know, me coming here. Actually, you know, it's not a big deal. I have been known as Pengkhianat Melayu for a long time already. But you see, that's the thing. You see, it's. I'm sorry to say this, like, I mean, like, for example, you know, if I say things like what I'm saying now, all right, and whoever, you know, will say, oh, Azmi, Pengkhianat Melayu. All right. I mean, people will say, hey, how I don't say things like that. You know, that's not good. You know. But then, you know, and usually it's non-Malays who say, you know, hey, don't say like that. It's not nice. You know, he's just making a point. Don't talk like that. And then someone like Kuke Kim says something against Chinese school, for example, and Chinese people say, hey, Pengkhianat China. My point is that it's deep inside us, you know. It's not just about the law. It's not just about the institutions. It's also about us as a people. That knee-jerk reaction. And that's the toughest thing to get rid of, which brings me to my next point. What do? Race Relations Act? Voila, forget it. It's rubbish. I can guarantee you now, how can you have a system with a constitution like ours and say that you want to have a Race Relations Act? Cannot. You cannot balance the two. You cannot. And on top of that, I can guarantee you, yes, you're right, it will be used against us. It won't be used against Ibrahim Ali, it won't be used against those kinds of idiots. It will be used against people like us, who are not idiots. What to do? Judicial progressiveness? You know, if we challenge these things, for example, the UiTM issue, for example, or if a government civil servant feels that he's being discriminated against and he challenges it under Article 136, can we get the judiciary perhaps, right, to make the right kinds of decisions? I don't know. Frankly, I think the judiciary needs many, many years before I can feel any sort of confidence. Not just in the independence, but intelligence. I'm not quite sure whether we can depend on judicial activism, right? Change the constitution, change it completely. Oh, I think pragmatic, and I'm sorry for being pragmatic. Are we all equal? And if the bugger cannot look me in the eye and say, yes, we are all equal, I'm going to say, you go to hell. I'm not going to vote for you. Right? So we've got to push it. We've got to make this an agenda. And hopefully in that way something can come out. But it's dangerous to believe only in politicians. Yeah. At the end of the day, it really is about us. We have to understand what the issues are. We have to understand what the law is and what the law should be, what the aspirations of the law was and should be. And we've got to push. We have got to push consistently and constantly, because no one else is going to do it. Thank you very much.